Lavender is the most bought and most killed plant in American gardening. Every spring, it flies off the shelves of every garden center in the country. Every summer, sometimes within weeks of planting, it starts declining. By fall, millions of American gardeners are standing over a dead or dying lavender plant, wondering what they did wrong. And almost universally, the answer is the same. They were given beautiful plants and completely wrong information about how to keep them alive. The lavender tag tells you the zone. It tells you full sun. It tells you well-draining soil. What it does not tell you is that zone alone is almost meaningless for lavender. That well-draining soil means something completely different from what most Americans assume. That the single most common thing gardeners do to protect lavender in winter is the exact thing that kills it, that fertilizing it, the instinct you have for every other plant in your garden, actively reduces its fragrance, weakens its stems, and shortens its life. Every one of those missing facts is on this list today. 7 secrets that the lavender tag never tells you and your garden center has no particular incentive to explain. Drop your US state or USDA zone in the comments right now. Every secret on this list applies differently depending on where you are growing and what your specific climate challenges are. I read every single one. Let's go. Secret 1. Your lavender variety determines everything, and most Americans are buying the wrong one. Walk into any garden center in America and the lavender on the shelf is almost certainly French lavender, Lavandula dentata, or Spanish lavender, Lavandula stoechas. Both are beautiful. Both are heavily marketed. Both are hardy only to zones 8 through 11, and both are being sold to gardeners in zones 5, 6, and 7 across the Midwest, the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Pacific Northwest who wonder every spring why their lavender did not come back. This is not a minor detail. It is the foundational decision that determines whether your lavender lives or dies before you ever put it in the ground. The wrong species in the wrong zone is a plant you are buying to lose. Every time. English lavender, Lavandula angustifolia, is the cold hardy species for most American gardeners. Hardy in USDA zones 5 through 8. Hidcote is the most compact and most cold-tolerant English variety available. Documented surviving Zone 5 winters in trials at the Chicago Botanic Garden. Munstead is equally hardy with a slightly looser mounding habit and outstanding fragrance. Phenomenal is the breakthrough variety for American gardeners in hot, humid zones 6 through 9. It handles the combination of summer heat and humidity that kills most English lavenders in the American South and Mid-Atlantic. Here is what most gardening channels never tell you about lavender variety selection. The zone on the tag is the absolute minimum hardiness rating under ideal conditions. Ideal conditions means perfectly draining soil, full sun all day, and low winter humidity. If your conditions are not ideal, and most American gardens are not, you need to select a variety rated one zone colder than where you garden. In Zone 6, buy Zone 5 varieties. In Zone 7, buy Zone 6 varieties. That one zone buffer is the insurance policy most gardeners never knew they needed. Tell me in the comments, what zone are you in and what lavender variety have you been growing? I want to know how many people are fighting this battle with the wrong plant. Drop it below. Secret 2. Drainage means something completely different than you think. Every lavender care guide says well-draining soil. Every gardener nods and moves on assuming their existing soil is fine. It is almost certainly not fine enough for lavender to thrive long-term. Because when lavender says well-draining, it does not mean average garden soil with decent drainage. It means the kind of drainage that exists on a rocky Mediterranean hillside where rain passes through the root zone within minutes and never pools anywhere near the crown. The number one killer of lavender in American gardens is not cold. It is wet soil in winter. Lavender roots sitting in waterlogged soil during freeze-thaw cycles develop crown rot. a fungal condition that destroys the base of the plant silently underground before you see a single symptom above the soil line. By the time the plant looks sick above ground, the crown is already gone. For garden beds, amend your existing soil before planting. Work coarse sand or horticultural grit into the top 12 inches at a ratio of 30 to 40% of the total soil volume. Not builder's sand, coarse horticultural grit, or pea gravel. Fine sand compacts in clay soil and makes drainage worse. Coarse grit stays open. Consider raised beds or mounded planting positions. Even raising the planting area 4 to 6 inches above the surrounding grade dramatically improves drainage and can be the difference between a lavender that thrives for a decade and one that dies in its second winter. For containers, the mix matters more than almost any other decision you make. 50% pumice or coarse perlite, 30% coarse horticultural sand, 20% quality potting mix. That is a lean, fast-draining mix that mimics Mediterranean conditions. Standard potting mix alone, the bag you reach for automatically, holds far too much moisture for lavender roots. Use it and you are setting up a slow root rot situation that plays out over 1 to 2 seasons before the plant collapses. If you are not subscribed yet, hit that button right now. This channel puts out real zone-specific money-saving gardening content every single week. The information in this video alone prevents plant losses most gardeners spend years trying to figure out. Free. 2 seconds, hit it. Secret 3. Never put organic mulch around lavender crowns. This is the secret that surprises gardeners most because it runs directly against the instinct that applies to almost every other plant in your garden. For most plants, organic mulch, bark, straw, shredded leaves, is beneficial. It insulates roots, retains moisture, and improves soil biology. For lavender, it is a death sentence applied slowly over winter. Organic mulch around lavender crowns traps moisture against the base of the stems during freeze-thaw cycles. That trapped moisture creates the exact wet anaerobic conditions that crown rot fungi thrive in. The very thing you place there to protect the plant through winter is the thing that rots it from the base up. Lavender plants that were completely healthy going into November are dead by April with no obvious cause, and the cause was the organic mulch you applied in good faith. The correct winter mulch for lavender is inorganic, pea gravel, crushed limestone, horticultural grit, applied 2 to 3 inches deep around the crown but not touching the stems. Inorganic mulch drains immediately. It does not trap moisture. It does not create the humid microclimate that fungal pathogens need. It provides some insulation from extreme temperature swings without creating the conditions that kill the plant. This applies to both container and garden bed lavender. In containers, a top dressing of pea gravel around the crown also improves drainage at the soil surface and reduces the splashback from watering that can introduce disease pathogens to the crown. Secret 4. The pruning timing mistake that destroys lavender every fall. Most American gardeners prune lavender in fall. It is a natural instinct. The growing season is ending, the garden needs tidying, and cutting back perennials in fall feels like responsible end-of-season maintenance. For lavender, it is one of the most damaging things you can do. Here is why. Dormant lavender. Stems in late fall look almost identical to dead lavender stems. A stem that is still alive and will regrow in spring looks brown, dry, and lifeless from the outside. When you prune in fall, you cannot reliably distinguish living wood from dead wood. Researchers at Purdue University Extension documented cases of gardeners pruning in fall and removing wood that was still biologically alive, wood that would have regenerated in spring, and leaving fresh pruning wounds exposed to the worst of the freeze-thaw cycle through winter. The result is plants that die or decline severely by spring that were healthy in October. The correct pruning time for lavender in USDA, zones 5 through 7, is late spring. specifically after you can see new green growth emerging from the base of the plant. That emerging green growth tells you exactly where the plant is alive and where it is not. You cut above the green. You never cut into the woody base below it. You remove only the confirmed dead wood and the previous season's spent flower stems. That precision is only possible in spring when the plant tells you itself where it is alive. In zones 8 through 10, where winters are mild, late summer pruning after the main bloom flush is appropriate. The plant has time to recover before any cold arrives, and the pruning triggers a second flush of bloom before the season ends. The 1/3 rule applies in every zone and every season. Never remove more than 1/3 of the plant's total volume in a single pruning. Lavender does not regenerate from old woody stems the way many other perennials do. Cut too deep into the woody base and the plant cannot recover. 1/3 maximum. Above the green growth. That is the complete pruning protocol. Hit the like button right now. Every like tells YouTube this content is worth showing to American gardeners who are losing lavender plants every fall because of a pruning mistake nobody told them about. 1 tap. Secret 5. The container material secret. Most gardeners choose containers for aesthetic reasons. Color, style, how it looks on the porch. For lavender, the container material is a performance decision that determines whether the plant thrives or slowly declines. Terracotta is the ideal container material for lavender. Not for aesthetic reasons, for physical ones. Unglazed terracotta is porous. It breathes. Moisture moves through the pot wall itself, not just through the drainage holes at the bottom. That transpiration through the pot wall creates a naturally drier root zone than any plastic or glazed ceramic container can produce. The root zone of a lavender plant in a terracotta pot dries faster and stays drier between waterings. That drier condition is precisely what lavender needs. Plastic containers hold moisture longer. Glazed ceramic containers hold moisture longer. In humid climates, the Southeast, the Pacific Northwest, the Mid-Atlantic, the additional moisture retention of plastic or glazed containers can be the factor that pushes root zone moisture from acceptable to problematic. The same plant, in the same potting mix, at the same watering frequency performs better in terracotta than in plastic or glazed ceramic every time. Container size matters equally. A minimum of 14 inches diameter for lavender. Larger is better. A larger volume of well-draining mix dries more evenly than a small pot. Small pots create wet pockets around the drainage holes while the upper soil stays dry, and provides enough root volume for the plant to develop the established root system it needs to handle drought between waterings without stress. Secret 6. The fertilizer trap. Most gardeners fertilize their container plants and garden beds on a regular schedule because fertilizing produces growth and growth looks like success. With lavender, fertilizing produces the opposite of success. It produces failure in slow motion. Lavender evolved in nutrient-poor Mediterranean soil. The chemical pathway that produces the essential oils responsible for the fragrance, the insect-repelling properties, and the medicinal compounds in lavender is a stress response. The plant produces more essential oils when it is slightly hungry than when it is well fed. Rich soil and regular fertilizing produce lush, soft vegetative growth at the expense of essential oil production. The plant looks healthy, large, green, vigorous, and smells of almost nothing. The fragrance that is the entire reason most people grow lavender has been fertilized out of it. Beyond fragrance reduction, overfed lavender produces soft, weak stems that flop open, lose their upright architectural form, and become significantly more vulnerable to disease. The dense, compact mounding habit that makes lavender beautiful in a container or border requires lean conditions to maintain. Feed it, and it falls apart. Do not fertilize lavender. Not once at planting. Not once all season. Not once ever. If you are growing in a container and feel compelled to provide some nutrition, a single light application of a low nitrogen, slow-release granular fertilizer in early spring, once per year at half the recommended rate, is the absolute maximum. Lean conditions produce better lavender. That is not accidental. That is the biology of this plant. Subscribe right now if you have not already. Hit the bell. Every week, this channel delivers content at this level. Specific, researched, experience-based information that changes how your garden performs. The next video is already coming. Make sure it finds you. Secret 7. The microclimate advantage. How to grow lavender one zone colder than your tag says. This is the secret that opens lavender growing to millions of American gardeners who have been told their zone is too cold. It is not necessarily too cold. Your planting position might just be wrong. A south-facing brick or stone wall creates a microclimate that functions one full USDA zone warmer than the surrounding garden. The wall absorbs solar heat through the day and radiates it back through the night. That radiated heat creates a temperature buffer around plants positioned directly in front of it that can mean the difference between a lavender that survives Zone 5 winters and one that does not. Gardeners at the Chicago Botanic Garden and the University of Minnesota document this effect consistently in lavender trial programs. Plants against south-facing walls outperform identical plants in open positions in the same garden by a significant margin. Avoid planting lavender in low spots. Cold air is denser than warm air and flows downhill to settle in low points in the landscape the way water does. A lavender plant in a low spot in your garden experiences lower overnight temperatures than the same plant on a slight rise, or against a wall, even if they are 10 feet apart. That microclimate difference is sometimes the entire zone difference between a plant that survives and one that does not. For Zone 4 gardeners and anyone in the northern half of Zone 5, container, growing with winter garage storage, is the honest answer. Move containers into an unheated garage or cool basement when temperatures consistently drop below freezing. Water once every 6 to 8 weeks through dormancy, just enough to prevent complete desiccation. Move back outside in spring after the last hard freeze. That protocol produces reliable lavender in climates where in-ground growing is genuinely marginal regardless of microclimate. Here is the complete lavender success framework before you plant a single one. Choose the right species for your zone first. English lavender for zones 5 through 8. Phenomenal for humid zones 6 through 9. Container growing for zones 4 and below. Get the drainage right before anything else. Coarse grit amended into existing garden soil. Lean, fast-draining mix in containers. Raised or mounded planting positions in heavy clay ground. Use inorganic mulch around crowns. Pea gravel or horticultural grit. Never organic mulch. Prune in late spring after green growth is visible. Never in fall. Never into the woody base. Use terracotta containers minimum 14 inches diameter. Never fertilize. Lean conditions produce better fragrance, better form, and longer-lived plants. Use south-facing walls and raised positions to create the warmest possible microclimate in cold zones. Lavender that is matched to its zone, planted in the right drainage, pruned at the right time, and left alone to be slightly hungry, is one of the most rewarding, most fragrant, most effortlessly beautiful plants available to American gardeners. The ones who get it right tend to get it right for decades. The ones who lose it repeatedly are almost always making one of the 7 mistakes I just described. Drop 2 things in the comments before you go. What state or zone are you gardening in? And which of these 7 secrets surprised you most? I read every single comment. Your answers directly shape the videos I make next. Now go give your lavender exactly what it actually needs.